mob was all tied into Vegas in terms of financial investments. They're always like organized crime and, kind of stigmatized, but I would say the mob has made Vegas what it is today. And it was just different. It was more simple in those days. So in the 40s and the 50s, when you had the Flamingo and the Sands and the Desert Inn, and offered the people a simple meal and some chips for in the casino, and that was it. And they knew everybody in the casino. So if you were a Harmon in the 50s, we would know everything about you, and we would shake your hand as an owner and say, Harmon, welcome back to the Sands.
Welcome to Harpinion. Here we explore the intersection of politics, finance and the gaming industry, and what that means for how the industry has been shaped and is being shaped. Every conversation brings its own experiences, its own challenges, and its own opinions. People have a lot to say in this industry with regards to what happened, how it happened, and how we got to where we are today, and what it will take to where we want to go tomorrow. Now that all said, let's dive into it.
You're not going to speak from a personal experience, specifically on, having run casinos or basically, getting into certain projects. But the project that we are going to talk about is you wrote a book. You're Dutch. You wrote a fantastic book about Las Vegas. It is something to be really looked at. It's very special because it's historical, but it's also, it comes alive through the personalities. Well, first of all, tell me a little bit about your background. You're not from the gaming industry. You are from the gaming industry. You have quite a bit of experience, but more on the supply side. And how did this project come about? I mean, it's quite unique.
Yeah, no, it's great to be here, Harmon. And my gaming experience goes back as far as my student time when I played poker. Where other people were working for the likes of Albert Heijn in Holland. I was in a supermarket, exactly. I was thinking I'm not going to do that, so I specialized in Texas Hold'em, no limit. Played a lot of tournaments, and I used to play a lot of people from the States back then. Okay. So that got me thinking like, hey, that's interesting. It's an interesting market. And then I developed an ebook about how to play online poker and how to use software. Okay. That got me into a little bit of the online industry. So I learned about how to create websites, and I soon visited my first gaming conference. I remember this was in Barcelona, far back, like. ICE wasn't even existing. It was just a small conference.
ICE is at the moment the largest gaming show for the listeners. Yeah, in the world.
And I was mesmerized immediately. It just captivated me because, I was like 20 years old, 21. Just made my first business cards and went there, and all of a sudden you're someone, with a company. And I felt like very energized. But then I just finished my studies. In history, and did some other jobs, went to London for a year, and worked as a headhunter, and then came back and started working for Randstad, which is a big employment agency, one of the biggest in the world. And it felt so boring, working for Randstad. It was not for me. So I called my father. I said, Dad, I tried for 6 months, but it's not for me. And he said, well, you're crazy. You can't resign now. That's bad. It's bad for your resume, and it's bad for you just bought an apartment. I said, well, just trust me. I'm going to go back into the casino industry. And he didn't like that much. So that's
not the thing to come home with.
No, but it was 2014 and everything was starting to become more and more booming in Europe. The online poker and the poker wave kind of blended sort of into casino, because I remember the first CAC conference in Holland in the Krasnapolski. Maybe you've been there.
Yeah.
There was a guy, I forgot his name, a Dutch guy. He came to me and said, you shouldn't do anything with online poker anymore. Online casino, that's got to be the future. And that got me thinking, and I thought like, well, I know how to build websites, so why not build an online casino website where players can learn about which casinos and how to play, and like a booking.com, like to compare casinos. Most of the online casinos back then were from Australia or from like some small casinos. It was all just starting. So like you had Titan Poker, and that became Titan Casino, and all of these Unibet just came out in Holland. In Google, I was one of the first that really offered a guide to consumers to know how to play online casinos. And at the same time, I started working for Unibet.
Okay. Unibet is big. Unibet was a Scandinavian, effectively sports book casino, right? They built their own software, I believe, already at that time, or they used somebody's software at that time?
For sports, we used Kambi.
Okay, can be.
Yeah.
Later on, they bought Canby.
Yes. And with casino, I don't even know which platform we worked with. But for me, it was just a whole new world opening up because I got to sit from the other side and I had to negotiate with affiliates.
Yes.
But they let me run my company on the side. So that was fantastic. I was the affiliate manager for Unibet, but I also could still be an affiliate, which a lot of the affiliates in Holland didn't like.
Right, exactly.
They thought like this guy is eating from both sides. So that was terrific. I had the time of my life at Unibet. The money was everywhere. I remember the first assignment I got from Unibet is like, take all the affiliates, go to Malta, hire a big yacht, and just sign them up for Unibet and make sure that Unibet is on the top of every website in Holland. So that was my job. And then in 2014, I went to the World Cup in Brazil.
Okay.
I watched that crazy match from Netherlands against Spain, the 5-1. And I sat with a couple of affiliates. And then 𝗖𝗢𝗡𝗖𝗧, who was the head of Unibet, Benelux, one of the first founders, I think, of online gaming in Holland. A big mentor,
really nice guy.
A big mentor for me. And he called me and he said, well, Joris, you got to come back from Brazil because everything stops here. Toto was filing a complaint that Unibet shouldn't be allowed to advertise anymore in Holland.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And that was sort of the end of my job. And I thought, okay, and Unibet started offering me some jobs in London. And this company that I have on the side, I just want to make that big. Now is the time. So that's what I did. And in 2016, I sold that to a Maltese company called Gaming Innovation Group. They acquired my company.
Yep.
All of a sudden, I was 30 and money in the bank. And I know a guy who I worked with for one of the casinos, and he said, "Joris, now it's actually started. Now you're starting." And so pretty much after that, I did some other things in affiliation. I kept running some companies. There was an earnout for Gaming Innovation Group, so I had to stay on board. And in 2021, I started working for Better Collective.
Okay, so that was in the middle of COVID. That was kind of interesting, right? Because I mean, actually, there was a big boom during that period. You know, with regards to people using,
the Dutch market,
and
the Dutch market opened up.
Yeah.
So I had to run the Dutch market on their behalf. So I did that for almost 3 years, and then I thought I want to do something with my passion, my old study history.
Right.
And during my job. Actually, in between the job that I got at Better Collective and the time that I was still an entrepreneur, I visited Vegas frequently. I just liked to gamble myself, play poker, and I liked to go to the city. And I've always had a fascination for America, like you.
I think the thing that we like is in the Netherlands, we grow up with a lot of creativity and a lot of, very open mindset. But the thing that we're lacking in the Netherlands is the fact that it's because of its, let's say, social welfare state type apparatus. We always feel like, we can't really explode into what we really want to do. And that's why I think a lot of Dutch people like the United States, because it offers a lot of opportunity, direct chances in order to really make it a business. And to basically be who you want to be, without the restrictions of, you can't do that. And, the Dutch finger, like,
judgment.
Don't do that. Exactly.
So for gaming people like us, it's wonderful to be in the States.
And
especially Vegas, because it's a crazy world out there. Right?
Vegas is fantastic. I mean, a lot of people say it's superficial. It's this, that. Anything is superficial if you don't know it. So, for the people that get to know a lot of people in Vegas, there's nothing superficial about it.
No.
And in generally, what you just have to understand is that every city has its own uniqueness. And Vegas, of course, has that uniqueness of its entertainment. It's 24/7.
Definitely. And when every time I landed my plane, sort of the descent, and you see the Nevada desert and then that strip, and it's such a magical feeling, you're excited, you want to make the touchdown. And of course, usually you fly back with an empty pocket and a lot of dreams killed. But that's Vegas, But you still, even though you lost money and whatever, and you come back home, and you're still like, when's the next trip? It's that thrill. And a lot of people kept asking me, like, why do you always go to Vegas? And I explained to them, like, I'm just fascinated by the fact that in the middle of a desert, in the middle of nowhere, that they built this energetic, unique city that is nowhere to be seen in the world. And everybody knows about Vegas. It's the best marketed city in the world.
Yeah.
Everybody knows about Las Vegas. If you say in Africa to a person, Las Vegas, they're open their eyes.
No, so true. It's the glitter and the lights and the entertainment and all the big stars, and it's just through the movie industry as well, through Hollywood, etc. It has just gotten so much cachet. It's just quite luxurious. It's incredible. You go to an average hotel and you look at the rooms and you're like, wow, this is amazing. And this is all I pay. It's a little bit more expensive now. But so let's talk a little bit about the book itself. And let's say, how did you get to the table of contents? How did you basically decide, okay, this is how I'm going to build the book and this is where it's about?
Yeah. At one point, I think it was 2019, the first, I had made my money. So obviously I thought, let's go into a better hotel. What's the best hotel on the strip? Well, it's Wynn Las Vegas.
Absolutely.
So I checked in for the first time, and I was completely enchanted. I was the suitcase that went up to the room, and hello, Mr. Dekkers, welcome to the Wynn. And it was different. That big, beautiful embrace of the bronze tones of the building, and it was just everything struck me as, wow, this is the place to be. And I walked around the casino, and I saw the interior design, and I saw all the marble columns, and everything was rounded, and it just felt like a magical place to me. And then on the trip back, I told my wife, I said, like, I just found out about this place and I can't stop thinking about it. And she said, oh, well, what is it? I said, yeah, it's the Wynn. I don't know who built it. And then I started doing my research into Steve Wynn. So I got everything that was on Amazon to buy, like books about Vegas. And that was when my history passion came back to me. And then I thought about, like, wow, why wasn't there still, because all the books I've pretty much read. Yeah. And they're all good books. You know, you've got a bunch out there and that from good authors that make a great story, but they weren't displaying the city in a fashion that I thought like that Wynn appeal. Yeah. You know, that luxury appeal. So I thought,
which is the case with most books. It's very interesting. I've always complained about it. I go to a lot of different cities. You know, you travel countries, then you get these, typical tourist books. And you get, pictures that aren't that sharp. The printed quality is not that good. The text, often is a bit like, that's not what I want to read about. What I want to read about is exactly what I experienced.
Yeah, and to your point, creating books. I think most of the authors that I read about about Vegas, they were from the 90s or the 2000s.
Okay.
So not a lot of recent works anymore. So they were a little bit outdated as well. So they didn't really appeal to me anymore. And I thought, if I could create the book on Vegas, where people would say, like, wow. And if you talk to people, not just the tourists in Vegas, but also the locals, people are so proud about their city. The residents in Vegas, they think there's nothing else. I wanted to make something like a tribute to the city. That was my goal. And so when I learned about Steve Wynn, and I just completely fell in love with the guy, how he approached the casino buildings and how to run a gaming company. And that got me really to write.
Well, his strength was really, his eye for perfection.
Yeah. So I kind of continued his legacy and created the book that I thought that he would be proud of.
All right.
That was my ultimate goal. My ultimate goal wasn't just to create the best book about Vegas, but my ultimate goal was to meet Steve Wynn and to have him say, even though he's blind right now, to have him say, like, wow, you did a good job, son. Like in an American way, you did a good job, son. Yeah,
exactly.
And I made that. So at the end of the journey, about a year ago, I visited Steve Wynn at his fantastic penthouse in New York. I will never forget it. It was only a 2-hour meeting, but he stood there, his hand open, and said, you did a good job.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
absolutely. So he never really saw the book. Because he was already, his eyesight was already.
Steve has always had this eye.
Yeah, exactly.
His disease. I think for the past 7 years, he doesn't see anything anymore.
Okay.
Yeah, completely lost eyesight.
Right. But he could feel the quality. I mean,
yeah.
As you can see, when we show you the book, it's an amazing, accomplishment. It's an amazing piece of quality, etc.
Yes, I read a lot about Vegas, but still, I'm not a witness. Right. So I love talking to people that were actually there in the 70s and the 80s.
Amazing personalities, especially with the individual casino owners, throughout time, Bob Stupak.
But also here at the conference. At the conference, we had some amazing figures like Larry Lewin.
Absolutely.
Whose father was one of the big guys behind the Hilton. And we got Dennis Conrad, Vegas.
Absolutely, marketing guru.
Yeah, so it's great to have those people and talk to them and have them tell the stories.
They have, Dennis himself, he's already 50 plus years into the business. Larry Lewin, his whole life, he's 78 at this stage. So, it's amazing what you get from them because they have lived it every day. Yeah. We lived it at times. I probably have been to Las Vegas 150 times. If
and I was talking about this with Simon Thomas, the owner of the Hippodrome Casino, and I said, how much of a nostalgic are you? Because I'm a big nostalgic. Yeah. That's why I created the book, right? I always think it was better in the 20th century. It was more real. It was more. He said, it isn't always like that. Sometimes I might exaggerate in that sense. But no, I just think, there's a lot going on in Las Vegas nowadays. And one of the things that you see on social media, but also when you talk to the people in Vegas, they really, they're kind of disappointed where Vegas is going right now with the corporatization of the city. Yeah. The fact that most of the casinos nowadays aren't run by individual operators anymore that actually own the place, but it's all corporate activity. REITs, Wall Street, private equity.
REITs are basically the real estate investment firms that they basically buy up the land, they buy up the casino, they basically give the casino the cash in order to either rebuild or refit, remodel, let's say, the casino. Have the cash for it, but then of course the casino's on the hook for lots of rents, as it goes. Now it becomes almost like it's a very, very luxury town feel that Vegas is giving. And you gotta have, some money with you in order to really enjoy it. The average meal is above $100 on a go. If we go back to how it all started and where it was, with the cheap buffets, with the personality, that everything was centered around the gaming floor, that has changed quite a bit.
It has. I think the old formula, which was installed in Las Vegas and made big in Las Vegas, was the mob who basically founded the city with some of the visionaries that they worked with. Yeah. They used to call them the front men, but I would call them visionaries. Yeah. In the early days, the formula that made Las Vegas big was quite simple. You would attract the best stars, the headliners, the Frank Sinatras, the Dean Martins from Hollywood. So Vegas has always had a very strong connection with California, both in terms of clientele that came to Vegas as an escape.
Well, it was a feeling market, right? It was 5-6 hours drive at that time, longer because now you have a beautiful highway.
You had Palm Springs, and you had Vegas. So Palm Springs was more to relax, and Vegas was to go for a thrill. Yeah. So all these Hollywood celebrities who couldn't really go out in Hollywood or LA because they were too famous, got to Vegas, enjoyed their stay in a hotel, and still had the luxury of getting their own, stars and good headliners to go to. But those early days, the mob financed Las Vegas. Yeah. The mob was all tied into Vegas in terms of financial investments, and without the mob, there wouldn't be any Las Vegas nowadays. So they're always organized crime and kind of stigmatized. But I would say the mob has made Vegas what it is today. Yeah. And it was just different. It was more simple in those days. So in the 40s and the 50s, when you had the Flamingo and the Sands and the Desert Inn and all those places, the Tropicana, it was just offer the people a simple meal, a good meal, with a simple gourmet restaurant where they had, just ordinary good meals. Give them some comps, like a free stay and some chips for in the casino. Yeah. And that was it. And they knew everybody in the casino. So if you were a Harmon in the 50s, we would know everything about you. And we would shake your hand as an owner and say, Harmon, welcome back to the Sands. Exactly. Great to have you. We know that you love craps. Here's already some chips for you to play at the casino. And maybe you had a special room, number 127. We always thought you would stay in that one.
Right.
It was personal. You know, the connection was personal. And the mob, they wanted to keep everything clean. So if you were an asshole, I wouldn't say they would point blank shoot you in the desert and all those movie stories. I mean, that sometimes might have occurred, but it's you know, it's a lot of movie talk. They did throw you out of the casino. They didn't like, because they wanted to keep the place clean. They didn't like anything to happen there, because the tourism, they know that was the cash cow. So,
but even today, casinos are fantastically safe places.
I would say they are, inside, but I would say on the Strip, you see a lot of still homeless people. It's not as good, I would say, as it was. So that formula, you see it coming back nowadays in downtown. You see some good CEOs there, Dirk Stevens, Jonathan Jossel from the Plaza. They kind of are...
They put their personal stamp on it.
Yeah, they're getting back into the old days, and they're thinking like that old formula that made Vegas... famous, that we should bring it back, and we should counter the impersonal attitude of the big corporates like Caesars and MGM that right now don't know about Harmon anymore, but just know your player's number.
Exactly.
On your loyalty card.
Well, theoretically, they know everything about me. The problem is I don't have any person to necessarily,
welcome me
to say, wait, unless I'm the biggest player and the biggest wheel, then I get a host, and then of course I still get that level of treatment, but then I got to be above what, 20, 30, 40, 50,000?
At least a year.
Exactly.
So, but things change, and I don't want to say everything is bad now. It's just the history just has this fascinating development in Las Vegas with the mob, and it just it speaks to a level of fantasy, and that's what's so nice about it. So
if you then looked at, for example, the stars, the entertainment that was being offered, the Frank Sinatra that basically helped build Las Vegas, give it so much fame, how did that develop over the years? Because right now, you still have a lot of stars, you have contracts, everything is very well. I mean, they built stadia or let's say sets, theater,
the Embassy Sphere.
Right.
Yeah. If you think like you have a desert, right, and you have a town that's in the middle of nowhere, Las Vegas wasn't in the proximity of a sea or a big port, or what can you do to attract big money? Big stars. So you invite the biggest stars out there. So the mob knew. So basically, Vegas history and the mob is simple. You got the Chicago outfit and the New York outfit. Those two made Vegas what it is today. And these guys, especially the guys from New York who ran, for example, the Copa, where Frank Sinatra used to play and perform, they knew that formula worked, that you had a big name and the VIPs would just come because they wanted to have a good time at night. And yes, they would play in a casino. But, these guys were ousted in New York. They weren't welcome anymore there. They were these illegitimate figures. And there was a lot of organized crime in the back going on. You had Lucky Luciano who would hang people up and crazy things happening in New York. So they wanted to get rid of those mobsters. So they came to Vegas to build the places that they had in New York, but then do it even better in the desert. So. And there they were in Nevada, where there were no laws, and the senators, the politicians that were in Nevada just said, please come, bring your money, and please make Vegas big. And that's what they did. So all of a sudden they had the freedom, they had the money. So one of the biggest stamps that they made on the history there, the marks, was to bring out the Hollywood stars into the desert. And that's how they build on the story. And I think it's what set Vegas apart from other towns like Reno, which at the time were still competing with Vegas for becoming the casino city. So I think what Vegas really did smartly was to bring out the likes of Sinatra. And guys like Sinatra had such stage presence. But it was more than that. Sinatra, for example, in the Sands, was part owner. You know, he became part of the ownership. Yeah, he got a.
Okay.
Everybody in those days got points.
Right.
Yeah. So Sinatra being that important for the Sands, he just struck it big, you know. And he was a guy that not only performed on stage and sang, but he also afterwards went to the casino himself and played blackjack and craps.
Right.
So not only could you enjoy a performance of Frank Sinatra at the Sands, but you could be playing next to him afterwards at the blackjack table. So you can imagine all the big guys from Hollywood were like, wow, we're going to Vegas.
Absolutely.
We might play blackjack with Sinatra.
Yeah.
And that was the thing that
was the real draw.
Yeah, that was the draw. Yeah. And then Sinatra was a guy who surrounded himself with like-minded people.
Okay.
So he invited more stars.
Right.
And he invited Dean Martin, and so the Red Pack started, you know, and Sammy Davis. And back then, Vegas was very segregated still. The whole of America was segregated. So black people couldn't sleep on the Strip. They couldn't even stay at a hotel.
Wow.
And Frank Sinatra was one of the first that said, well, let's cut this crap. Let's offer Sammy a place here at the Sands. And he was one of the first that said, why, stop this bullshit. And he promoted Sammy Davis.
Fantastic.
So he was a really, you know, there's a lot of bad stories about Frank Sinatra, but he was actually also a very inviting, corkful, gestureful guy.
That's almost with anybody, right? Well, you all have the positives and the negatives, and it's always interesting when you start looking, and especially when you go out and become famous, etc. Your positives, you know, become much bigger. Your negatives become much bigger. So yeah, obviously it becomes controversial.
Exactly.
When did it start moving into the, let's say, MICE concept, which is about the meetings and the exhibitions, the conferences?
Fast forward to the 70s. Larry Newman, who we spoke to yesterday in the conference, his father, and then Baron Hilton, who owned the Hilton hotels, came to Vegas by the end of the 60s.
Right.
And at the time when the mob's in power, Hilton wanted to change the city. Baron Hilton wanted to bring something else to Vegas, wanted to expand.
He was a hotelier.
He was a hotelier, so he liked things big. You know, and the mob hotels of the 60s were sort of small, low-rise motels with a high-rise, maybe one high-rise tower. Kirk Kerkorian, before we come to Baron Hilton, Kirk Kerkorian, this Armenian fellow who had an airline, an aviation company, just like Howard Hughes. He came to Vegas and he built the International in 1996.
Right.
1969, sorry. So when the International opened, all regards go to Martin Stern, the architect, it was the first I-shaped tower.
Okay.
That was in architecture was a revolution. And Kerkorian wanted to appeal to a much larger crowd. He wanted this hotel, and it was the biggest hotel in the world when it opened up in '69.
How many rooms?
I think almost 3,000.
Wow.
Which was huge at the time.
Absolutely.
And Kerkorian not only built the biggest hotel, but he also had this big marquee, and he had all the flags. It was like a United Nations building. It was actually Stern, the architect, based it on the United Nations building. So they had all the flags from all the different countries. So all of a sudden, Vegas had a hotel that invited the world to come to Vegas. And then Kerkorian, learning from the mob, thought like, okay, we need a big star to open the hotel.
Right.
And he called the Colonel Parker, who at the time was the manager of Elvis Presley. And then the Colonel said in his own, you know, maybe you've seen the movie about Elvis from Baz Luhrmann.
Absolutely.
In his own, with a big cigar in his mouth. Well, if you want Elvis, we can do it, but he's not going to go up stage first. You know, so he was like, because Elvis was a big name and reputation was everything.
Absolutely.
So they invited Barbara Streisand to open up the hotel.
Right.
And then after 6 weeks, she did an okay job, I would say. She was good.
Yeah.
She wasn't making a great connection with the Vegas crowd. She was a New York girl.
Right.
So the appeal with the Vegas crowd was kind of mediocre.
Okay.
But that was perfect. The Colonel thought, okay, now Elvis can come and, you know, explode the place. And that happened. The thing was, though, even though the International was a big success and Elvis was a big success, Kerkorian had some problems. He had some financial problems with his hotels. And he needed to offload some of his assets.
Right.
And I think he sold his yacht to the owner of the Playboy back then. Or
Khashoggi.
There you go. Yeah. So he acquired his yacht, and then the International was up for sale, and that was how Baron Hilton became interested.
Right.
So the Hilton finally acquired the International in 1970.
And that was the first major hotel name coming in.
Yes. But before they could do so, they needed to change the law.
Right.
Because everything was empowered by the mob. So there weren't any laws for publicly listed companies to acquire a gaming hotel.
Oh, wow.
You know, gaming was sort of a bad thing.
Yeah.
As a legitimate company, as a publicly listed company, you could never associate with casinos because casinos was organized crime. So Baron Hilton called Paul Lexold, who was a senator of Nevada, and said, if you want me in Nevada, you got to change the law.
Yeah.
My biggest editor, my biggest help of the Las Vegas book is Roger Thomas. Roger Thomas was not only the designer for Bellagio, Wynn, and the Mirage, and the right hand of Steve Wynn, but he was also the son of 𝗖𝗢𝗡𝗃𝗓. And 𝗖𝗢𝗡𝗃𝗓 was the first banker of Las Vegas. He had the Bank of Nevada. And Perry Thomas was good friends with Paul Lexold, and those two changed the law in Nevada and made an entrance for Baron Hilton. So that's how Baron Hilton could acquire the International, and then the Hilton.
It's amazing how politics plays such an incredibly important role into making things happen.
Yeah.
Because people often think, you know, we need to have politics stay out of everything because then everything will be okay. Politics can often not stay out of, you know, let's say a major development.
Yeah.
It has to get involved, but it has to, you know, get involved for practical reasons, for the right reasons, and not to at least make things happen that can progress. Obviously, to some people, that progress was, of course, not progress because it affected them. But
Exactly.
actually, that's where it's about.
It is. And, you know, we're being out here on the Casino Operations Summit, and you hear all these stories about how the regulators are clamping down the countries and taxing and making it harder and harder every year for gaming.
Yeah, no advertising.
Exactly, land-based operators getting smashed.
etc. Yeah.
In Nevada, it was the other way around. The
Right.
politicians were like, how can we make gaming more interesting?
Yeah.
How can we attract more money into the state? So
But of course, Nevada didn't have much. It had a bit of silver mining, didn't that?
exactly,
So it was a state that wanted to grow, and it had really nothing to grow on.
it was an exception to the rule. Gaming was sort of outlawed in the whole United States except for Nevada.
Right.
And so in the 70s, with Baron Hilton coming, it was another leap of faith that the Nevada politicians took in order to attract more big men into the city, because everybody thinks like Vegas has made a growth like this.
Right.
But it didn't go like that. In the 70s, it had a crisis. In the 80s, it had a crisis. So they always had to be creative in order to attract more money and going for the next big thing. So the opening up of gaming companies being able to do publicly listed funding for casinos was a major steps done for Nevada and for Vegas in particular. So that was
Fantastic.
That was big. Yeah.
So-
And so that ties into your story of conventions,
Exactly.
because Hilton was one of the first that said, okay, we should maybe attract corporations into the town and have convention tourism. And Elvis was a great star that appealed to business people alike and families. And the MGM took it further with Kerkorian in the 70s.
Yeah.
And nowadays, and in the 90s, when it opened up, obviously the Venetian with Sheldon Adelson kind of copied that formula from Baron Hilton.
Copied and improved.
Yeah.
Because it you know, MICE was left, right, and center, but that, of course, was because Sheldon Adelson came out of organizing the, at that time it was called Comic-Con.
The Comic-Con, the Comdex.
The
Was
Comdex,
the
sorry, the
Comdex,
Comdex.
yeah.
It was the Comdex, and the Comdex was what basically put him on the map. And when he sold that, he had the money in order to start with Venetian. Didn't completely have enough in order to finish it. Then, you know, put a bit of a squeeze on, let's say, the builders, but they all sat around the table, got to an agreement, and basically built the Venetian. Yeah, it's a remarkable story, because from the moment it opened to, you know, what it is today, etc., it hasn't lost its.
Funny story, Sheldon Adelson and Steve Wynn, they were huge competitors.
Yes.
So Sheldon wanted to make the Venetian and the Palazzo high enough so that it could keep the sun away from the Wynn. So right now, when you're in the pool at the Encore and the Wynn side, especially the Wynn side, at some point after 3 or 4 o'clock, the sun goes down.
Right.
The Venetian blocks the sun. So These guys, they were in a fight all the time.
Again,
Personalities,
Yes.
and I think Sheldon tried to steal a lot of the employees of Steve Wynn, and
Right.
it's funny stories.
Now, the interesting thing is Steve Wynn was all about, the luxury, the experience, the perfection, there's this sense of like you are really somebody, whereby Sheldon was more about how do I attract the masses, how do I build this mice concept, how do I attract as many conventions as possible. And then he even built his own convention center, competing against what the International Hilton, the Las Vegas convention center was effectively, Sheldon wanted to compete against it.
Yeah.
And it was just, anyway, of course, it helped to draw even more conventions to town, and therefore a lot more casinos were developed and built up.
We might have passed two important figures in our story. First one is Jimmy Hoffa with the Teamster Union Pension Fund in the 70s. And the second reminded me when we met in Malta and you saw my book. I think you told me the story that you went to Circus once. Stayed in the hotel.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a good story as well. Circus in the 70s was taken over by Bill Bennett.
Yeah.
So Jay Sarno started Circus, the guy that also founded Caesar's Palace. And Jay Sarno was a visionary, but he was also kind of a clown, know, and that's how he came with the concept of Circus. And he wanted to attract the circus acts and then combine it with a casino, but it didn't work well. So Circus wasn't doing well.
And it basically went downhill quite quickly. It was always more of a 3-star than a 5-star.
Yeah, and Bill Bennett came in and he thought like, what is this crazy place? We gotta completely turn things around. So Bill Bennett was a very smart man, and he thought like very simple, like we just need to get all the crazy circus acts out of the place. He turned up the slot machines. He made them looser, so that more jackpots kept hitting.
Yeah, looser basically means a higher return to
higher payout. Yeah, and the other thing he did was get the cheapest buffets in town,
right,
and the cheapest rooms. So all the truck drivers and all these guys that were part of the pension fund, they would come to Circus and enjoy their time, and found out like, hey, this is cheap stay, but what Bill Bennett made sure of is that when they stayed, of course, in the hotel, is that they would gamble as well. So eventually they would lose their money anyway, but just in the casino.
Right.
But at least they had fun doing it because they would get a lot of returns.
Yeah.
And that's another thing that you hear a lot of complaints about nowadays on the Strip, that the slot machines are way too tight. Bill Bennett was an advocate of making the slot machines as loose as possible. Yeah. So that everybody on the Strip would say, if you want to win, if you want to have a chance to win some money, go to Circus.
Where are you now? You have developed a book. What are your next plans?
Orienting myself on my next step. I know that I don't want to go back to online.
Right.
I've had my share with the laptop. Yeah. So that's what appealed me to you as well as an individual. Like I love talking to people that are doing things offline as well. And that's what attracted me to the land-based sector and to the Casino Operations Summit. So for me, I like interacting with people live. My dream would be to open up a casino on the Strip.
Right.
One day. But, where Steve Wynn could do it with a few, maybe like 10, 20, 30 million to the golden nugget. Nowadays, you need billions. So
exactly.
If you
difficult for a non-corporate and not.
It's almost impossible.
Yeah, exactly.
But I am going to the Strip and visiting casinos nowadays. I'm thinking like, man, we could do a lot better job.
It's so much a cooking, cutting, environment that so much is so alike.
Yeah.
And what I've always felt is it should be the Disney for adults. And I felt that Las Vegas could do a better job in order to, make this a more comprehensive experience. And maybe with the humanoids, coming in, let's say maybe with all the technology that's there's a lot more possible. I think they did a good job in the downtown, right? With the
Circa.
With the Circa, and but not just the Circa, the Fremont Street experience, whereby, you have this incredible LED, just the experience by itself is
Steve Wynn did that, did you know?
No, I did not.
Yeah, Steve Wynn invented the ceiling. Yeah.
Right. Clearly, we haven't seen the end of your, presence in the industry, and maybe you're just starting, actually.
Yeah.
But you start from a very sound foundation. You have already done quite a bit with the affiliate management, driving, let's say, traffic, understanding what it takes to get people even online versus, the casinos. Now you understand what it takes to bring them into the casinos, writing that book and understanding so many of the actions
I
that
learned
take
from the
place
best.
in the marketing.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I mean, it's a marvelous foundation. So now indeed, it's a matter of who's going to come to the party in order to say, okay, give it a chance with yours, and let's see where it can be taken, because. Right now, I think there's a lot of possibilities, and we're not just talking about Las Vegas. That's effectively the epicenter of gaming, but there are, opportunities around the world, despite the fact that it's more difficult to open integrated resorts.
Yeah, the UAE is opening up a new
Exactly.
Wynn property. Macau is striking it rich.
Yeah.
There's a lot of interesting. And during the conference, we've met so many interesting people from Eastern Europe, and
Exactly.
there's a lot of countries that are really in big development mode. So it's interesting. And let's see where it goes. I'm up for anything.
It's fun. Sounds good. Look forward then to
Thanks for the invitation.
when you step further. Thank you very much.
Harpinion brings candid conversations with leaders and experts shaping gaming's political and regulatory future. Follow or visit harpinion.com for more episodes and updates.